Considering the sheer wealth of mythology that comprises the Star Wars franchise, fans can't be blamed for struggling to keep track of it all. It's basically a full-time job at this point, enough that Disney literally pays a group of lore keepers, the Lucasfilm Story Group, to keep it in order. Yet those in charge evidently haven't gotten everything right over the last half-century, breaking their own established rules and concepts on the regular, albeit often in ways that might have passed fans by. So I am Padawan Gareth from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 times Star Wars broke its own rules and you didn't notice. Number 10. How Force Ghosts work. Many elements of the Force are kept ambiguous throughout the series, seemingly intentionally. But one of the more irksome inconsistencies is the means through which a fallen Jedi becomes a Force ghost. Obi-Wan, of course, becomes one after being felled by Darth Vader, and Yoda and Anakin follow suit in Return of the Jedi. But what about other Jedi who died throughout the series? Namely, what about the 200 or so Jedi who died in the Battle of Geonosis in Attack of the Clones? Why didn't we see them become Force ghosts? Beyond that, the time it takes for a dead Jedi to become a Force ghost is totally all over the place. Some near instantly transmuting into ghost form, while others take considerably longer. Elsewhere, there are countless unanswered questions, like who Force ghosts can reveal themselves to, and how extensively they can interact with the physical world. Again, this aspect of Star Wars is kept vague to give the writers leeway for how they use it, but the constant deviation and variation makes it frustratingly hard to get a bead on what being a Force ghost is actually all about. Number 9. Jedi forgetting their Force powers. The great thing about being a Jedi is that you've got a battery of basically magical abilities at your disposal at any given moment. But there's an infuriating number of times throughout the Star Wars franchise that they've conveniently just forgotten this fact. The Phantom Menace literally opens with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon using Force speed to escape droid fire, and yet we never see them use this again. It sure would have been useful during that climactic fight with Darth Maul, right? Elsewhere, nobody ever uses their Force powers to try and damage Darth Vader's armored suit. And there are literally innumerable other examples of Jedi not using established Force abilities to get themselves out of a bind. If you want to try and handwave this, you might suggest that Jedi intentionally make spare use of their powers to avoid the temptation of the dark side. But come on, it's a reach. Basically, if Jedi made continued use of the many powers at their disposal, these movies would be really damn short. Number 8. Everything about the Holdo maneuver. The Holdo maneuver was first seen in The Last Jedi, when Vice Admiral Holdo suicidally rammed the Raddus into Snoke's flagship, the Supremacy, at near light speed to buy the Resistance time to escape to Crate. Yet this rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way, because even if you accept the science behind the move, if such an unorthodox move was possible, why haven't we ever seen it before in Star Wars canon? Why, for instance, didn't the Rebels perform a similar move on the Death Star, or the Resistance ram Starkiller Base, and in turn save themselves a ton of hassle? It feels like space warfare would be totally different if this was always a possibility. Even accepting that it's clearly a difficult move to pull off, The Rise of Skywalker made an unconvincing attempt to quell miffed fans, dismissing the Holdo maneuver as a one-in-a-million shot. Yeah, sure, JJ. Yet The Last Jedi didn't depict Holdo's act that way at all, so it basically felt like a limp attempt to sweep it under the rug and stop fans continually questioning it, which of course they still do. Number 7. Random lightsaber colors when it's cool. The original Star Wars trilogy plainly established that lightsabers come in 3 colors: blue and green for Jedi, and red for the Sith, a scheme which remained consistent for decades. But in the prequels, Mace Windu suddenly rocked a purple lightsaber totally out of nowhere, simply because he wanted to stand out from other actors in the Battle of Geonosis. Since then, we've seen other canonical shades of lightsaber: Rey's yellow lightsaber in The Rise of Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano's white lightsabers, and of course the dark saber. Though the now extinct Legends canon attempted to ascribe specific meaning to the colors, most of this has since been wiped out, ensuring the colors assigned to sabers outside of the primary Jedi Sith template are more or less a crapshoot. Ultimately, it really comes down to creatives wanting to explore the color spectrum, and honestly, it's tough to blame them for that, even if adventurous colors are conspicuously absent in the original trilogy. Number 6. Tusken Raiders reaction times. Here's a hilarious inconsistency you almost certainly forgot about, or perhaps never even noticed in the first place. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan and Luke come across a downed sandcrawler, and Obi-Wan memorably remarks, "These blast points are too accurate for sand people. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise." Now, even accepting the whole issue of stormtrooper aim, Obi-Wan's summary dismissal of the sand people / Tusken Raiders' marksmanship runs counter to numerous subsequent depictions of their incredible sniping abilities. Take The Phantom Menace, where a Tusken Raider shoots a pod racer moving at incredible speed, and more recently the Book of Boba Fett, where Tusken Raiders managed to snipe guards on a moving train. Of course, it's possible to assume that Obi-Wan was simply mistaken in his estimation of the Tusken Raiders. But if Obi-Wan is supposedly such a wise and knowledgeable individual, it feels less like an intentional character flourish than an internal inconsistency with how the Raiders are presented. Number 5. Lightsabers cauterizing wounds except when they don't. One of the key characteristics of a lightsaber is its extreme heat, which allows it to not only cut through basically any material with ease, but instantly cauterize wounds while cutting human flesh. Except that's not always the case. Take Obi-Wan's run-in with Ponda Baba in the Mos Eisley Cantina in A New Hope, where Obi-Wan effortlessly slices Baba's arm off with a lightsaber, before we catch a lingering glimpse of Baba's severed appendage covered in blood. Sure, you can argue that Ponda Baba's circulatory system and blood pressure act in a different way to humans, but it's another reach, my friends. In reality, most every other time we've seen someone lose a limb to a lightsaber, say Luke in The Empire Strikes Back, it's been entirely bloodless. Essentially, George Lucas hadn't yet mapped out the rules for lightsaber strikes during production of A New Hope, ensuring Ponda Baba's gory dispatch continues to stick out like a sore thumb compared to the more family-friendly dismemberments in subsequent Star Wars movies. Number 4. People wearing glasses. One rule which George Lucas insisted upon from the outset of Star Wars is that glasses effectively don't exist in this universe. And given how technologically advanced Lucas's world is, that's basically fair enough. Except a few glasses wearers have crept into the universe in the years since George Lucas sold the property off to Disney. For one, an episode of animated series Star Wars Rebels Double Agent Droid featured a character wearing specs. And more recently and prominently, The Mandalorian's Dr. Pershing rocks some distinctive eyeglasses. Of course, it's possible that glasses are basically a relic in this universe, with only a select few bothering to use such an ancient technology. But all the same, it's tough to believe that someone of Dr. Pershing's standing would favor them over simply having his eyesight corrected with, say, laser eye surgery. George Lucas lost the opportunity to dictate such things when he let go of Star Wars, yet in the grand scheme of things, it's a small inconsistency, and therefore one you probably didn't even spot. Number 3. The Sith's spare use of Force Choke. In the same vein of Jedi forgetting about their Force powers, we have Sith not using the Force to its full murderous potential. Case in point, though we see Darth Vader use the Force Choke several times on subordinate officers, why the hell doesn't he ever use it against actual Jedi? And he's not the only one guilty of this. In the Clone Wars, Palpatine Force Chokes Count Dooku from halfway across the galaxy, suggesting it could be extremely useful for the Sith to either kill or pacify enemies, namely the Jedi. You can certainly argue that Vader and Palpatine being connected with the people they Force choked made it easier for them to exert the Force upon them from a distance. But all the same, doesn't it feel like an underused skill in the entirety of Star Wars? And even if you accept that skilled Jedi can block such a maneuver, what about pesky regular rebels who aren't Force sensitive? It's a move that could do so much damage, and yet it's rarely used, likely because George Lucas created something a bit too powerful for its own good. Number 2. The nonsensical rule of 2. Even casual Star Wars fans are aware of the Rule of Two, a Sith maxim first concocted by the legendary Darth Bane, which states that only 2 Sith Lords can exist at once, 1 master and 1 apprentice. It sounds simple enough, and yet as stringently as Emperor Palpatine initially appears to adhere to it, it's been treated more as a guideline throughout the history of the series. To that end, Palpatine juggled Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker as apprentices, a move which could have conceivably resulted in there being a third wheel wheel in this party. But of course, Palps ended up sealing his own fate when father and son reconciled, resulting in him getting lobbed down a reactor shaft by Vader. Then there's the Rise of Skywalker, which saw Palpatine residing on Exegol with a whole-ass fleet of Sith acolytes, prompting the film's novelization to effectively retcon the rule of two, claiming that there are many Sith who are ruled by two. Really though, it's just another interesting idea which George Lucas didn't think through enough. Number 1. Force healing is now a thing. In addition to the many other ways The Rise of Skywalker left fans bitterly disappointed, it introduced a force power never seen in the Star Wars movies before: force healing. In the film's climax, Rey and Ben Solo force heal one another, despite the fact that they seemingly haven't been trained to do so. And more to the point, we've never seen any force users do it before. Well, in fairness, Grogu did perform a force heal in an episode of The Mandalorian's first season, aired mere days before The Rise of Skywalker. But that aside, it's staggering that such a useful force skill hasn't been extensively used in canon Star Wars media prior to this. If this was a possibility, why didn't Obi-Wan use it to heal Qui-Gon, or Anakin to heal Padme? Sure, you can just hand-wave it by declaring that certain Jedi get certain abilities, and force heal just happens to be incredibly rare among them, or even that Rey learned it from the ancient Jedi texts. All the same, it strains credibility that the movies went more than 40 years without featuring force healing at all. And that's our list. Know of any other times Star Wars broke its own rules and you didn't notice? Let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and don't forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. I've been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always. Thank you for watching this video today, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Bye bye!